It's Saturday, SMITE fans, and the SEC kicks off this day in competitive SMITE action. We've got a great one for you just around the corner. One final matchup in the SMITE Challenger circuit here for the day today. This one over in EU. Remember, we switched our order of things because Hurrywind will be playing in the SPL today. We saw the NA matchup yesterday. EU SEC rounds out our SMITE Challenger circuit weekend this weekend. My name is Dolson. Mifflin joins me bright and early on this fine Saturday morning. And Miff, one final match in this weekend in the SEC, and we're getting down to it. All of these teams only have a couple matches left to play here in this phase. Mambo play the Gladiators today, and then two more matchups after that. Remember, all 6 teams make it from the EU SEC, but the impact high now in these games as far as seeding goes for that early December placement tournament with a chance at fighting into Worlds a bit later on.
But implications might be a little bit higher for the Gilded Gladiators, considering how well Mambo has been doing recently. We'll get a chance to look at it in a moment. But
sure will.
The Mambo's been on a tear, so even if they drop this set, I'm not sure how much that shakes up their position near the top. Gilded Gladiators, I think, really do want this win.
Yeah, Gilded Gladiators in need of a win. We'll look at what already happened this weekend in the EU SEC and in the standings just after that. The Aru Scorpions take the 2-0 win over the Styx Ferrymen, and the Highland Ravens with a 2-0 win over the Niflheim Wargs. Think back to the Wargs and how well they were doing in phases of past. Now the Highland Ravens, very, very talented squad. And then the Aru Scorpions, what a turnaround that EU SEC team has had as well. And then one final matchup, as mentioned, this weekend in the SMITE Challenger circuit over in the EU region. That's Mambo up against the Gilded Gladiators. Now, Miff, you have high expectations for Mambo, and standings-wise, I think, for good reason, 2-0. So that Highland Ravens versus Mambo matchup, which will happen later on down the road. I believe that's actually our last matchup of the phase, so that's really exciting. Mambo versus Ravens in a couple of weeks. The Gilded Gladiators at 1-1, dead center of the standings here in the EU SEC. With only a few matches remaining, the Styx Ferrymen and the Niflheim Wargs unlikely to break into the top 3, but chances to improve their seeding, and that does matter. If all 6 teams make it, you're looking at, the top SOC team, things like that, and that's really what you're worried about if you're now down there towards the bottom of the standings. Anything you can do to jump out of that 6th spot, avoid running into potentially Mambo if they continue their tear. And Mambo, Miff, no surprise that this team has done as well as they have in the EU SEC. We saw them beat an SPL squad during SMITE Summer Masters a month and a half ago. However long time has kind of all started to blend together here. And Deathwalker, Johnny, Zeros, Trixtank, and E-Chrome continue to be near untouchable in the EU SEC. A team that plays with emotion. They play with high chemistry levels here with one another. And it takes a serious force to unseat these guys here in the SEC.
Just an incredibly aggressive team. It really is a European squad in name only, or perhaps in region only, because they play a distinctly North American style, and that Mambo will bring the fight to you on second rotation of jungle buffs. They'll go for the first wave of contestable farm, and they play these very fast compositions. How many other people are playing Zeus in the world right now? Just about nobody, but Zeros will lock it in. Things like the Changa as well. Just anything to get aggressive at any portion of the game seems to be the MO of Mambo, and it has just worked out for them. You bring up their synergy, and I think that's a great topic of conversation. There's a squad that's stuck together for a pretty long time now, and a squad that's got plenty of SPL talent behind them as well. There's a reason expectations are high for Mambo. They generally just live up to them.
Really, that jungle mid combo between Johnny and Zeros, they played in the SPL last season during Season 8. Under the Valhalla Valkyries. They had some great moments there together, and then have brought in, to your point, Miff, players in Deathwalker and Trixtank who have had SPL experience, Worlds experience in the past. And so no surprise, really at this point, for Mambo, the only limit is the time investment that these guys can put into the game, right? If you're scrimming, you're getting everything all going, the Mambo, a chance maybe at unseating an SPL squad, making their way to the SMITE World Championship. So storyline continuing for Mambo, and clearly we have high expectations, and that means the Gilded Gladiators, the Mambo opponents today, are going to have to play out of this world in order to unseat this squad. And the Gilded Gladiators, a team that also have a lot of chemistry with one another, and I think back to just F6 a few phases ago, and this is kind of the remaining pieces of that squad, a couple here and there. but really more piecemeal of a team that has some talent, hasn't quite built up that chemistry just yet. Has some potential. Hex Mambo, I think, still the gold standard here in the EU SEC, but when Listemics, Maskill, Sotos, Calvin, and Toddy all form a team with one another, I do think there's expectations set, and I think the Gilded Gladiators have kind of met those expectations. Middle of the pack here in the EU SEC, upper middle of the pack, depending on the day. Really, every single role is going to have to play top of their game if you're going to unseat Hex Mambo here in this best of 3.
I tend to agree. When Hex Mambo is discussed, it's a 5-headed behemoth that is a threat in every single one of these lanes. But when the Gilded Gladiators are playing at their top, it's generally just a really good day for Maskill.
Right.
I know that that's an inherent jungle bias coming from me, but Maskill has been continually impressive. And generally, when you see this team succeeding, it's off the back of aggressive plays from him or a stylistic choice of going towards a late-game composition, generally with Maskill on the late-game hypercarry, things like the Kali or the Set. So I'm very excited to see how the Gilded Gladiators try and address Hex Mambo, because in the past couple of weeks, it has been that slightly more late-game slanted style of play. Good luck getting to that point in the game up against the Mambo.
Awilix 6-1-4, Kali 8-1-5 in the last 2 games for Maskill here in the Gilded Gladiators. So you're right, Miff. Spot on out of the jungle. Can the Gilded Gladiators give themselves an advantage in picks and bans? Game number 1, we will find out. Do you still have inherent jungle bias? You're so far removed from.
All right, relax.
From
that's so far.
Winning. All right, you're right. That was a little extra emphasis on the so, and that's my bad. You are removed from.
Okay.
From. I'm sorry. Have you played?
I actually played a tournament yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, I got first rounded, but I was there.
Who'd you get? Do we know anyone you got first rounded by?
Just like some STC guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so you are slightly removed from some of your
go.
competitive experience. Do you think you still have a little jungle bias in the back pocket, or has your caster professionalism overshadowed any role bias?
Man, what a no-win situation on that question,
yeah,
right?
Am
I professional or do I like jungle? I guess I'm just professional.
Yeah, that's clearly the answer here.
I suppose so.
No, but really, I mean, do you still feel connected to the jungle role? I mean, when you're slamming ranked, when you get off work, you go home, quick food, and then you sit down and immediately play ranked, and you do that all the time. Do you still just queue up for jungle all the time?
Yeah, of course. It's you want to win, you play jungle, especially in like pubs.
Is that the truth?
It's the best role at controlling the map.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess in pubs you just kind of run things over, especially if you got Miff on your team.
That's right.
Well, you lost a Joust game the other day that you sent me a
No,
picture
I
of.
won that Joust game. I don't know why we're bringing this up on the STC, but it was a ranked duel match.
You're
okay.
Right, you're right.
Yeah, go ahead, finish the story. Please.
And then post-game chat, can I say what the guy said?
Yeah, sure.
He said, GG, Dolson's better to Mifflin. And I had nothing to do with that game, and it made me
Yeah, that guy got owned, by the way. That guy got real owned.
Bad at Smite, great opinions, though.
Sure.
Thumbs up on his caster taste. I know, I'm sorry. We'll catch up with picks and pans here between Hex Mambo and the Gilded Gladiators, Ymir, Guan Yu, and Cupid. So, you got good CC and lockdown with the Ymir. And then, Miff, you got pretty good sustain between the Guan Yu and the Cupid. On the flip side, Ratatosker, that's been a pretty prevalent pick. Jingwei has not been at the top of the Hunter tier list here for a little while, but maybe still sort of that catch-all pick. You know what you're getting, and you got a decent bit of safety there for the laning phase and for team fights.
Yeah, it looks like the Gladiators have been hitting the history books for this composition. This is a Phase 3 Season 8 comp between the Jingwei, the Cthulhu. Ratatosker maybe not as prevalent back then as he is now, but still certainly fits that style. A team fight composition already starting to establish from the Gladiators, and safe picks at that. Ratatosker, once he ticks over to level 5, if he's not playing proactive, should be able to just utilize the ultimate to get out of sticky situations. Jingwei, amongst the most slippery hunters in the game as well. Now with the Emoja too, a little bit more sustained to match up against what Mambo have brought. Looks like the Gladiators really are going to put all their eggs in the, hey, let's get to that 20-minute mark, and we're going to take you to 5-on-5 engagement. Whereas Mambo have got possibly one of the most aggressive duo lanes in the game between Ymir and Cupid. Their kill pressure is incredibly high, and one of the most contested picks now in the SPL, Daji, somehow makes her way through 10 bans.
Man, Cthulhu and Yamoja, that's a heck of a front line that the Gilded Gladiators have gotten for themselves here. I mean, if you're at the SPL level, that's going 1-2. in a few of these drafts, and they get it down for the 3rd and 4th pick, respectively, for the Gilded Gladiators. Daji plus Aplash. That's, the Daji less interesting. Aplash, we don't get to see much of that at all, nor the Scylla. So out of the mid lane, we've got Aplash versus Scylla. I don't know what year of matchup that is. I don't even know if Phase 2 of Season 8 these two were getting played.
That's like Season 3.
Yes, Season 3 maybe. All right, so Scylla versus Aplash in the mid lane. What's your take?
It's going to be a pretty low-pressure mid from the Scylla. You don't exactly clear waves incredibly fast. Opwash does, but he's a little bit more susceptible to those ganks. If I'm Ratatasker on the other side, I'm thinking to myself, wow, okay, free gank. I'm gonna go to mid, and I'm going to stay there.
See if Opwash is under a bit of pressure here. Game number 1 between the Gilded Gladiators and Hex Mambo. Just around the corner. Remember, I think you go into all these games, you're favoring Hex Mambo, you're assuming this is the team that's feeling a bit more comfortable, and the Gilded Gladiators need to play near their top. Johnny on Dajimif admittedly scares me a bit if I'm the Gilded Gladiators.
It should.
At the SPL level yesterday, we saw how Daji just took over games. Couple sets of beads that Johnny's maybe needing to concern himself with, but level 5, blink on Daji, and maybe Hex Mambo off to an aggressive start.
Maskill doesn't pick up beads for himself. No beads for the Yamoja either, so some pretty easy targets for the Pal-Al from Johnny. I'm keeping my eyes on Hex Mambo. I expect them to try and set pace in this matchup. Opwash, similar to what we've seen from Ven on Baron Samdi, is largely a mobile mid-mage. It's got okay damage output throughout the early portions, should be able to out-pressure Scylla pretty easily. And with a highly aggressive jungler like Daji, expect to see them put a lot of pressure on the enemy red buff, rotate through that contestable farm. It's almost as if we talked about Hex Mambo's playstyle a little bit earlier on. They drafted for it. This is standard stuff for them.
We could take a breather here. The high-octane gameplay at the beginning of Game 1, just too much for us to keep up with. I mean, there are so many roles that Hex Mambo can play through, really, and I think that's where it gets difficult for the Gilded Gladiators. And identifying their strike points. Now, at the SPL level, yesterday, we saw a lot of, Mike and Rongyu kind of going back and forth. Mike really just defending their purple buff. Rongyu was simply okay with just taking away the small guys in the purple buff camp. Trixtank just gets the whole thing for himself here. And an absolutely brutal start up against a very aggressive duo lane in the Cupid and Ymir.
Yeah, generally, when we see it in the SPL, they settle for the smalls because someone shows up to stop you. If no one shows up, take the whole thing, and Trixtank does exactly that. Getting timer on first purple buff, very important. Opens up the door for Johnny to rotate through on second. Could be we see the Gilded Gladiators try and get Maskill involved, because I doubt we see the Gilded Gladiators establish lane dominance, in spite of having Yamoja, one of the highest actual minion pressure supports in the game. Between Cupid and Ymir, it's just so difficult to want to step up to these waves.
And at some point, Echrome will help sustain up, even if Calvin and Toddy find a little bit of poke damage. Now, Maskill is rotating over. It's a Riptide back on a Trixtank and a blink forward from the Ratatosker. Good upgust from Toddy, but a dash away from Echrome. Safe enough. Now there's a Heart Bomb out. How is there that much damage this early into the game? That caught me by surprise as Echrome overstepped, though. The ebb and flow palpable. Now watch out. On the backside of the jungle, Johnny is rotating in, has blink, and Toddy does not have beads. Maskill close by as well. Stun onto Johnny. And a dash out from Maskill. And it looks like Hex Mambo and Johnny are going to leave this little scrap empty-handed. But that was close to nearly being turned around by Echrome and dropping a first blood for Hex Mambo.
Even in having Maskill just rotate to this lane, it's a tough situation for the Good Gladiators, who had lost out on their purple farm. They miss out on the contestable farm. Scepter does go to Hex Mambo. They clear out their own purple buff. And then the Good Gladiators afterward 3-split the wave. Mambo's pulled ahead pretty significantly in experience just by not dying. The Gilded Gladiators, specifically Maskill, really needed to get a kill there. Unfortunate for them, they come up empty-handed.
Echrome and Trixtank will continue to find their pressure over here in the duo lane. Now, later on in the game, I mean, you imagine this Jingwei will get to a really strong spot. Now, in the past, it's been a lot of, the crit build, right, that Jingwei is synergized with. That's where Jingwei has felt maybe strongest in the meta. Another purple buff stolen away. So the Gilded Gladiators 0 for 2 on their purple buffs. Do you think crit's in a strong enough spot that Jingwei can still kind of force that build and feel like you've got a good itemization path later on in the game?
You know, we haven't seen too much of the full crit build, but we've seen like double shuriken, be it Shadow Steel and Wind Demon.
Yeah.
I think that style of build could really work out for Toddy. But if he were electing to go down that path, I would have expected him to pick up Devourer's Gauntlets. But I suppose we are playing on 9-9. This is SCC, so Devourer's hasn't gotten that buff just yet. Completely slipped my mind. Doesn't have the penetration, so Transcendence makes perfect sense to me.
All right, so a good start for Toddy, and hopefully staying safe for the Gilded Gladiators later on in this laning phase. It'll be a steady 1-level lead or so for Trixtank and Echrome just because of the purple buff pressure that those two have already put out. And it's these next couple of minutes where the jungle could really ignite as well. At level 5, Maskill is going to get that semi-global pressure, can suddenly jump on targets. 30 seconds left on the beads for Echrome. I mean, you're really playing with small margins there. The moment Maskill hits level 5, you're going to have to rotate over if you want to take advantage of those beads being down. And so, in all likelihood, Echrome should be just fine. In fact, Echrome hits level 5, drops Fields of Love, Heart Bomb, all of it onto Toddy, who dashes away. The healing from Calvin is fantastic and makes all the difference in the world. And still, first blood, not there for Hex Mambo, but watch out, Johnny just around the corner. Toddy just gets the beads back. Might need to be used here. Heart Bomb out, freeze onto 2, Palau up. Is the damage enough? It sure is. And finally, Hex Mambo able to get a kill in this high-pressure duo lane.
Man, Toddy could not catch a break there. Holds on to beads throughout all of that aggression, so fortunately doesn't need to worry about subsequent ganks nearly as much. But generally, the beads is used to save your life. And he going down, I think the Hex Mambo is just happy with that outcome. Surprised to see Toddy hold on to it through Fields of Love, though. Had he not taken all that damage, could have had some fight back potential. Instead, just gets picked out. But it was an expensive play from Hex Mambo. Cost them a whole lot of their ultimates, all 3, between Trix, Echrome, and Johnny. So, silver linings where they lie. Gilded Gladiators should at least be able to pick up their own purple buff, find a little bit of farm, get that timer back, and open up the door for Maskill to know when he needs to start rotating over towards the duo.
It's expensive, Myth, but it's about sending a message, right? Now Toddy is scared to exist in that lane. Has beads, but didn't even get to use them last time.
Oh, he got to. He just didn't.
Right, he had the ability to, but
Absolutely.
it didn't matter. That's what I mean. The message has been sent. You know, if Toddy steps up too far, potentially at Daji now with Brawlers, that'll help out some of the sustain that Calvin's been throwing out in knocking down that Jingwei maybe one more time. And so Maskill now draws a hard task, and it's matching the pressure of Johnny, who we know is going to be rotating all over this map, potentially over in the mid lane. Though Sotos with I'm a Monster, you get CC immunity for a little bit of time. It's not the easiest to pull into the Palau, but if you're worried about burst damage, you maybe have a little bit of it. Toddy, you got a Ymir behind you.
He's got
you're
beads,
2
though.
levels down. Yeah, he's got beads and airstrike. And so the wall from Trixtank forces the sidestep from Toddy.
Oh, see
Heart
ya.
bomb. Goodbye. Echrome with another. The message has now been sent twice, Myth. Even with beads, Toddy under a bit of threat. I'm a Monster, no good onto Johnny. No chance, Johnny outplays this, nearly gets the kill on a Maskill, who goes up onto the branch and dashes away. And the damage from Palau, almost enough to snag another. Hex Mambo really picking up the pace here at the 5-6 minute mark and not letting Gilded Gladiators make any plays.
Well, Stemmick's in some trouble here. Has the transformation available, but only buy himself a little bit of time. Deathwalker running him down.
Man, my goodness. Deathwalker likes to play right alongside Johnny, and the trend starting to build here for Hex Mambo. And you know what? This is actually, I feel like this is a new age sort of style that Hex Mambo has started to play. I'm thinking back to last year, Season 8. I mean, there were games where Hex Mambo would wait until 20 minutes to try to find pressure, to try to find kills. And now I think you've discovered, all right, if we play a bit more in your face, we can catch teams off guard. We are too good to sit on our hands for 20 minutes of the game. And there are still games where Hex Mambo play a bit slower, but I think they realize that with this type of composition, they can just run at their opponents early on, and now effectively have a lead in every single lane, except for maybe mid, but jungle's been going
it's there.
fine. No, it's there. All right, half level or so for Zeros as well. And haven't seen much pressure onto this Opwash yet. Do you still feel like that's maybe Masskill's best chance at getting something going here for the Gladiators?
Yeah, I did, and then I saw a 3 versus 2 attempted by the Gilded Gladiators in mid, and it just didn't work. Could say skill issue, right? Calvin doesn't land the ultimate. Masskill forced to use his own ultimate defensively. Sotos whiffs as well.
Yeah.
If those cooldowns are connecting, maybe that fight turns around ever so slightly, but big maybe with history as an indicator. I would say, though, that Opwash should be the most susceptible target to a gank, or perhaps even Echrome, who has just been playing super aggressive in the duo lane. If he's going to play on tower line, get to him.
Oh my god, Johnny Hurts says tier 2 hi-rez. Though it's small in stature, it's big in damage. And Johnny will chase down one more with the help of Zeros.
Yikes.
Calvin simply burnt through. And now literally every single lane has gotten something going. Zeros had just farmed up to this point and dodged out a gank. Now a kill for the Opwash. Really all funnels through this Daji, and Trix Tank on Ymir has played so effectively up to this point. Masskilo spent a lot of time farming, which has given Johnny a 1-level deficit. But again, my goodness, these Through the Cosmoses have just been used defensively more than we've seen anything else.
Surely not.
Oh my goodness. How do you keep up with it? There's too much. This is an EU SEC game with breakneck pace. Hex Mambo already 3,000 gold ahead, Myth. And Masskill hasn't been able to get aggressive, so the jungle's not in a spot where he's going to be super helpful. Maybe you're just hoping that you can slam the brakes, farm up for 15 minutes, and scrap around.
Oh, they're going to kill him between towers. Don't do it.
You think so?
I mean, they're going to try. Oh, Toddy, don't hug that wall. Oh, no.
Oh, they might just be able to get the kill anyway, because he has ult.
Okay.
He had ult. Now, Myth, the message that's been sent, right?
Yep.
Now about 6 times in a row. 0-3 for Toddy, no beads. And Toddy didn't even get Transcendence, had to go to Dominance. I'm not sure that Transcendence would have much stacks on it if Toddy ended up building it.
We'd be 20 minutes in, sitting at 35 stacks.
Doesn't have many stacks on it. I got to make sure I correct that before that just didn't sound right.
Yeah, glad you did, or I would have.
Would you have?
Of course.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, Toddy gets Dominance, not Transcendence. Needing to pick up the pace just a little bit here. The fights haven't worked for the Gilded Gladiators just yet, but this one does. A 2-kill swing, but Deathwalker still on the chase. It's Calvin through the Riptide. Deathwalker mounts up and chases down the Emoja. 2 for 1 is as good as it'll get for the Gilded Gladiators. So rotation in, though. No, this is just Trix Tank and Deathwalker. No ultimate for Deathwalker.
They could turn this.
They might be able to. Deathwalker's got decent chunk damage, a little bit of shred there as well, but maybe as good as it gets for the Gilded Gladiators. They get a 2 for 1 and knock down some priority targets.
Yeah, it seems like Hex Mambo may have gotten a bit over-aggressive in that small exchange. Still need to be worried about the Scylla damage output. And we were talking about it earlier. When the ultimates are connecting, they're still pretty decent. If I'm a Monster finds a couple targets, really can change up some of these team fights. That was a good ultimate from Calvin as well. Locks in Johnny, which just really mitigates his successfulness in any sort of engagement, being forced to use that pal out offensively.
His efficacy or his effectiveness?
I've forgotten, honestly.
No.
And here's the thing: nobody's going to catch me on it.
You were the book bearer for
the book bearer.
Yeah, for effectiveness versus efficacy.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: use either word, people are going to think you're smart, right? And that's the whole reason we're using them.
I think people think you're more smart if you use efficacy.
Well, more smarter.
What did I say? More smart?
More smart's right.
Right. Well, you can't use efficacy and more smarter in the wrong way in the same sentence. That's just, it's against the book that you're supposed to be bearing. 4-level lead for Echrome has forced Toddy to airstrike and backpedal every single time a purple buff comes up. The left side of the map might just need to be forfeit here, as Hex Mambo sent Echrome and Trix Tank over to the Gold Fury. Calvin Sotos close by. Remember, I'm a monster, good for objective confirm. But if you're Hex Mambo, you might just be able to take the fight beforehand. Calvin being melted down. Oh no, Calvin delivers the heart bomb over to Sotos.
Good God.
Who does get stunned, and Calvin's the one who dies. A crush deals a little bit of damage to Johnny. And this should now be simple for Hex Mambo. A full 5 grouping on the Gold Fury.
Well, Lystemix is here.
Yeah, but does that make a difference?
Well, he descends into madness. There's a lot of knockouts. There's a lot of healing.
Oh, Lystemix is going to go in, but the Gold Fury has been reset.
Oh.
You cursed him. You cursed all of the Gilded Gladiators. Toddy snags a kill onto Johnny. But the rest of the Gilded Gladiators melted down. Now
Okay,
it's
well, hold on.
Masskill's.
Masskill's got it.
That's right. Masskill's got through the Cosmos. This is
he's not using
revolving
that.
door.
Blink,
Okay.
Acorn.
Yep, blink. Acorn. No. And through the Cosmos to get on out. I admire the attempt from Masskill. Just a bit shy, and Hex Mambo now expand on that gold lead. Getting close to 5K or so here. Has built up another 1,000 or 2 in the last couple of minutes. Breakneck pace from Hex Mambo, and nothing going right for the Gladiators.
Well, I'm going to keep it real with you, man. The odds of a comeback from this position are slim to none. The Hex Mambo have established such a massive lead so quickly everywhere on the map. We're only 13 minutes in, but 9-3, you'd think we're way further. The only way back for Gilded Gladiators,
Fire Giant steal.
Fire Giant
Twice.
steal, maybe some over-aggression from Hex Mambo again. But when you look at the compositions that both of these teams chose, it almost feels like the Gilded Gladiators chose to lose like this. I mean, look across the board.
That is such a Mifflin mentality.
Well, I'm just saying.
The only way you lose is if you choose to lose.
And they locked in these guys. These dudes play this game 40 hours a week. They chose this.
So you're saying it's a composition difference.
Let's break it down lane by lane.
Let's.
Duo lane, absolutely dominated. Why are you playing Jingwei on 9-9? It doesn't make any sense.
Fair enough.
She's not the safest. She doesn't have fight potential. And duo lane
You don't think
is the
Jingwei is
progenitor.
the safest?
No, it's either Hachiman or Heimdall, and it's always Heimdall. Okay, so Jingwei can't fight. The majority of leads are established in the duo lane because there's so much neutral farm on that side of the map.
Yep.
You forfeit the lane by walking in as that 2v2. So that one's lost. Scylla can't establish pressure whatsoever. So even up against Opwash, who should have been susceptible to ganks, you're not even worried about it.
Zero's unworried about all of this. So much sent towards this Opwash.
You missed the boat, Calvin. Your boys are gone. Get out of there.
Yeah, the rest of the Gladiators turned tail and headed on out. Calvin, desperate to make a play. Won't matter, unable to do so. And then I'm a monster used to gobble up a bit of the farm. Yeah, I mean, it seems now like even the plays that almost get made by the Gilded Gladiators end up turning around into kills for Hex Mambo. Tier 1 tower is going to drop in about 15 minutes. They're probably strong enough to pull an FG here in the next couple of minutes, you'd think. Maybe a Pyromancer to wet the beak, and then, have you ever heard that saying?
I have now. That's like your first drink of the night, right?
Yeah, they're like wetting the beak. They're wetting the Fire Giant beak. They're
Understood. I read you loud and clear.
Yeah, they're getting the beak wet around the Pyromancer, and then maybe
Stop saying it.
Why? I think it's a great saying.
I agree, but maybe maybe not a cast.
You think there's something else in there?
I see you Googling it, so I'll
Whoa,
buy some time.
No! No, he broke the desk!
Yeah,
Mike!
things are going awful
Mike,
here.
the desk is shattered! The desk is shattered!
We
Go
hate
to a
that.
single. Can you cut it
No,
a single?
there's so much high-octane SMITE action happening. We'd almost certainly need to watch that instead.
The desk. He just shattered the desk.
Oh, that's less than ideal, to be sure.
Broken. It's so broken.
Well, hey, Toddy got a kill.
I'm crying. I'm crying. Oh my God, we've gone sideways.
Wait, actually take Dave's single. He is crying.
I'm crying. No, it's okay. We got to stay in game. We got to
We're
stay
staying
in game. Toddy does get a kill on the E-Chrome of all people. That.
Aw, I'm injured.
Wait, oh my God! We have descended into madness, Memphis.
Dude, I have taken a blow. It's a mortal wound.
My goodness. All right, I didn't take a deep breath, Mifflin. You have broken 3 desks now.
Can I get a paper towel or something?
You know what? I've always wondered what would happen on cast if one of us injured ourselves or passed out or
Yeah, 3 people came in and laughed at me. Is what happens.
No, I'm laughing. Everyone else is serious and wondering what to do.
So concerned.
I'm laughing. Here, I'll take it from here while Miff is tended to. Don't you worry.
Yeah, we've got medics on deck.
This is just pure chaos.
Surely you're not bringing me a Clorox wipe for my cut.
Yeah, you have to. You got to disinfect. I'll take it from here. Don't you worry. I'll to moisten. Oh no, I can't be reading Urban
Do I have
Dictionary.
2 cuts?
No, you're okay, Miff. Hex Mambo and the Gilded Gladiators have brought ourselves to a 5,000 gold lead now for Hex Mambo. All right, you got the solo cast boy for a minute or two here while Miff tends to himself. The good news is for me is that Chair 1, So much fighting is happening that this is just my wheelhouse. And Chains will pull in Calvin, and another one. Oh my God, that terrified me. That scared me so heavily. Hex Mambo pulls in another kill here. That's Calvin. So now I'm all alone. Oh no, Billy's running back. I was gonna podcast it for a minute. The good news is, you need to watch yourself, Billy, when you sit down. There's a shattered piece of you're being told to stand, and so arise, Billy. Welcome into the cast.
Hey, what's up? I'm back.
This is pure chaos. Could you hear it tangibly when it
everyone
shattered?
heard it. Yeah.
I was so confused. I didn't know what was happening. Oh, look, Billy!
Hey,
we
it's
bring
me.
in Billy. We're tagging him in onto the cast. We're happy to have you here, Billy. Wish the circumstances were a bit different, especially considering you have to stand now. And you were back there, I assume, really taking in the sights and scenes of this game here, Hex Mambo versus the Gilded Gladiators. Are you on Mifflin's team? Do you think that this was just the draft of Hex Mambo really brought this to the Gilded Gladiators, and the Gladiators almost chose for the game to go this way?
So, I mean, the big thing for all these SEC games, right, is, yeah, you can pick the stuff that doesn't work in your ranked games. You can pick the stuff that doesn't work in the SPL because it's the SEC. These players know what they're doing, right, for the most part. You go in, you can get stuff done on picks that aren't super conventional. I think having the Jingwei here, having the Scylla here are fine. I mean, you look at the other side, the Hex Mambo literally have Alpoash going into this game, so it's not like it's SPL picks, super meta, but I think what the Hex Mambo drafted for is shutting out the Gilded Gladiators, and they're looking very strong going into this Fire Giant.
Yeah, the Gilded Gladiators don't have much here. No real chance to get in and try to take that Fire Giant away. Fire Giant over to Hex Mambo. Maybe this is the best you can do if you're the Gilded Gladiators. You split push out a bit, knock down a tier 2 tower. You've opened up a win condition if you're the Gilded Gladiators, and now an exposed Phoenix over on the left side of the map. But with the gold lead is as heavy as it is at 20 minutes here, Billy, are we thinking that Hex Mambo can really get an effective push off? I know the 18, 19, 20-minute FGs are sometimes a little awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Just given the state of gold and how much damage you can do to structures, things like that. Do you think Hex Mambo actually have enough leg here to really get some Phoenixes opened, potentially start to siege up?
It is a little awkward. What Hex Mambo's comp is kind of best for right now is kind of playing into the jungle, playing for picks, and getting farm out before outright sieging. Alpoash does a lot better on defense than he does on offense because of the ability to control so much zone space. So there's a lot of ability here for the Hex Mambo to play in the jungle more so than playing directly up into the siege. You can see right now Deathwalker is holding left lane down pretty alone by himself. That's more trust in his team to not only control themselves in this what could be a 3v4, 3v5 over on the Gilded Gladiators right-hand side. So there might be some fight breaking out here, and this is probably the best time for the Gilded Gladiators to force something going because they do have the numbers, they do have an advantage.
Yeah, it could be awkward, though, if the Gilded Gladiators lose this fight handedly, which they still might. I mean, the Gladiators have been taking odd-numbered fights all game long, and it felt like they've been losing them. Now Johnny has found the back line. Palau forces the beads off of Sotos. Gotta be enough damage here for Echrome and the rest of the gang to continue on forward. You might ask, where's Deathwalker? Well, Deathwalker just fine over on the left side of the map.
He's going
sieging
bird.
up the left side Phoenix all on his own. Calvin, again, didn't get the memo. Left behind while the rest of the Gilded Gladiators go back to base. I'm not sure that Deathwalker has enough damage to fully finish off the Phoenix, but this is now a massive split push for Hex Mambo. And it's all up to Listimics and Sotos. I don't know how much damage they can really do. And we'll tag in once more. We'll swap it back to Miff, who rejoins the cast.
Whoa, Phoenix Siege on the right-hand side. Right-hand bird going down. Now it's Listimics in some trouble. Forced to retreat. Tricks Tank takes damage in return as Johnny teleports forward. Separates the engagement. Toddy GR, looking to put his 5th death on the board, actually decides to leave the fountain. Fortunately for him, no enemies in front of him.
We appreciate Billy for stepping in. Are you? First of all, I want to make sure. Are you tended to? Are you?
Oh yeah, I've got.
You got a nice band-aid on.
Yeah, I got a couple.
Unfortunately, it's not like one of the really fun ones that has like a picture on it or something, and it's just a plain old band-aid. But looks like it'll sustain up your arm quite nicely. I can't believe that just happened.
Well, I can. It's like the 3rd time or something.
Yeah,
No, second time. Second time.
You know what? This is the long con. You're trying to get off desk duty forever because you simply keep breaking the desk.
I'm a liability.
Eventually
That's
they're
right.
not going to let you do the desk ever again. The good news is if there is a game for you to miss a large portion of, Hex Mambo and Gilded Gladiators Game 1 might just be it, because this one has gone sideways for the Gilded Gladiators, and it was sideways from minute 1. Calvin on the Emojas just not had a fantastic game put together. Toddy has been forced into the dominance. Didn't have time to stack up the Transcendence. That was an 0-3 start. Has turned it around a couple of times. But you got another 15 seconds on this Fire Giant buff. Golden Hand has already been backed and spent by Hex Mambo. Right side Phoenix down, Myth, and the other two soon to be exposed if the... I can't tell. His portrait is not over the mid-tier 2. So 2 birds exposed, and I imagine Hex Mambo far enough ahead that they can just take a team fight and end this game when they please.
They'll probably wait about 10 seconds for Echrome's relics to come back up, but after that 10 seconds, things are going to be different, okay? They're going to get aggressive all the way across the board or go back to base simply to make me wrong.
As if this could get any worse for you, Myth.
God, injured, desk broken, and wrong? No, not me.
Well, it's already been clipped and shipped by SMITE Pro on Twitter. So.
Excuse me?
Here's the thing. We can only clip it and send it out because you're okay.
Oh, okay.
No,
I should have been mortally wounded.
I've genuinely wondered all the time, because it's actually never happened, knock on wood. These desks underneath
Don't
the glass.
knock on the desk, man.
Well, I'm knocking on the wood underneath the glass. Soda's going to get dove here by Johnny. I'm not sure Johnny cares. Yeah, just kind of walks away, uses the beads to avoid the root. And the rest of Hex Mambo rotating through. I've been wondering, because it hasn't happened in my 4 years of casting, like if somebody genuinely gets like sick on cast or like an emergency happens, like say I had to like up and leave, like what would happen? That was the closest that I've gotten. I think I handled it poorly. I think I broke immediately.
Well, I broke the desk.
Right, you broke the desk, and then I broke immediately because the sheer absurdity of what happened. Just when are you gonna learn?
Well,
you broke the middle desk once, right?
I mean,
And have broken that desk twice, I think now.
there's just so much game we should be talking about instead.
I know. I'm sorry. This is on me. Yeah, but look. Again,
I'm looking.
If there's a game where we can take a deep breath here, it's a 15,000 gold lead with Fire Giant for Hex Mambo. I mean, the odds of the Gilded Gladiators turnaround limited, and we'll break this down on the post-game desk. Well, we'll break it down 2/3 of the way because we only have 2/3 of a desk.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's good work by me. But really, I'll summarize. I'll give this game its due credit, despite the desk shattering in front of me. Hex Mambo piled on the pressure early. They built up their gold lead, and the Gilded Gladiators have simply been on the back foot. Johnny has put a fantastic game together on this Daji. And though all the beads that have been purchased are available from the Gilded Gladiators, I'm not sure that slows down Hex Mambo all that much. A double freeze from Trix Tank starts it off, and a Fields of Love on the back line sends the Gilded Gladiators back. Deathwalker gallops around in the back of the Gilded Gladiators fight, but here comes Johnny. The Palau will not pull in Toddy, but it will grab Calvin, and Hex Mambo now barreling towards the base of the Gilded Gladiators.
Defensive relics maintained on both carries of Hex Mambo. 3 still standing for the Gilded Gladiators. Maskill, access to that ultimate, but unlikely that he decides to actually use it to go into that fight. That Maw, that is a 5-man death ball called Hex Mambo.
And Hex Mambo now on the Titan of the Gilded Gladiators with only Toddy and Lestemix in the fight. Maskill joins it as well, but he is so far behind itemization-wise, I'm not sure it makes a difference. Hex Mambo steamroll the Gilded Gladiators, and the Gilded Gladiators fall out in 27 minutes here in game number 1.
Oh, you're right. I can't.
Myth, rule number 1 being on the desk, no hands beneath the desk.
Yeah,
You're supposed to maintain your hands above the the camera shot. I love it. Talk to me about what happened here in the Gilded Gladiators in game 1, man.
While I was there, the Gilded Gladiators were getting owned, and then I took a brief siesta, a small break from the cast.
Show me your forearm.
Immediately afterward, we got a little
Yeah.
Is that the forearm? Immediately
Just the
afterward,
back
I
of your
come back. I tag in with Billy, who is doing a phenomenal
Yeah,
job.
Billy did a great job.
And we find out that the Gilded Gladiators were still getting owned.
Billy just wanted to wet his beak in the cast.
Had to wet his beak.
A little bit here.
I should have wore my jewelry today.
Yeah,
I'm
you
gonna be doing the
absolutely could
Toli
have.
pose.
Look, I think for Hex Mambo, it's a miraculous showing here in Game 1 and really exerts the type of dominance that we have come to expect from Hex Mambo. I need a moment. I'm going to take a moment. Hex Mambo take game number 1. Gilded Gladiators hoping to bounce back right after this. the level of chaos that you just brought to that cast was similar.
And he just like breaks stuff.
Yeah, but on a regular basis, his stuff is just that is already bent now. It's already. Hopefully, we didn't need that shovel for something.
Yeah, were you gonna dig some holes with this rubber shovel, man?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. That's on me.
Yeah, it's the time of year. It's the spooky time of year. We can break down game number 1 a bit though. Miff, you were with me for the first and the first bit and the end bit of game number 1. Hex Mambo and the way they drafted, we figured there would be high levels of pressure over in that duo lane. Started off very effectively in that type of way. E-Chrome and Trix Tank combined with Johnny for pressure early. I mean, it built up to like a 4-level lead for E-Chrome at one point. And maybe, you know, Miff, I've come around on it, and maybe you said it best. It's simply the way that this game was drafted gave Hex Mambo the ability to play this aggressive.
Gilded Gladiators didn't pick a single lane that they wanted to play throughout the early portions, so they didn't play the early portions. Forfeit an entire segment of the game against one of the top-seeded SEC teams, and you'll probably just forfeit the rest of the match as well, and that's exactly how this one pans out. Hex Mambo established pressure early and never really had to let go of it. Tested maybe once on that right-hand side where they get over-aggressive, essentially extending into the enemy speed buff. Even with a 4,000 gold lead, probably don't want to be doing that at around the 9-minute mark. But since then, they had learned their lesson, and it was pretty simple waters from there on out.
I think you were an agent for the Gilded Gladiators there in that game. Anything to turn our eyes away from what was happening on screen is what
right.
they needed, because it was so dominant from Hex Mambo. 7-2 and 6 from Johnny. The standout performance really got everything going. But Trix Tank matches that kill participation with 0-0-13, the perfect support KDA. Unfortunately for the duo lane of the Gilded Gladiators, a 3 and 12 combination KDA is just not going to get it done. And so really it's back to the drawing board now, and I know that's a bit of a cliche, but if you're the Gilded Gladiators, you've got to choose somewhere on the map that you want to funnel some pressure through and hopefully get off to a better start here this game. Because again, Hex Mambo have shown us that in EU, even though this region can play slower sometimes, more methodical brand of SMITE, Hex Mambo, when they I was going to say buy pressure, but that's not the way that that phrase works. You've got me all flipped around already. I don't know how I'm supposed to recenter. No, this is my professional moment here. After all the chaos that's happened, I can recenter myself and get back into it. How are you feeling? You're okay? I want to make sure before we get into...
Oh, now that you're done laughing at my my quite literal injuries.
Hands above the desk, Miff, first of all. Yeah, you got to keep...
What desk, man?
Technically, you're still at a pod. Does the glass make the desk?
I think...
At what point does
a desk is contingent on 3 parts, and it's the legs and whatever the roof of the desk.
That was 2 parts.
Yeah, well, there's multiple legs. 2.
Okay. Well, Mifflin, you're missing an important piece of your desk over there, so...
Yeah, the roof.
Hands where you want them. Picks and bends. For game number 2, we'll get through this, I promise. There's nothing else over there for you to break, except for the plastic shovel, which is already not in a good way. A Heimdall ban here for the Gilded Gladiators early on. Important that we've flipped sides here, but I don't know. I mean, depending on what the Gilded Gladiators pick and ban out, if Hex Mambo are able to run back a similar start to their draft and they get 2 really strong picks, it could be a nice look. But then a Ratatosker ban. What do you think Gilded Gladiators hoping to leave open here for their first pick?
Daji does generally perform pretty well. Gets picked pretty high up in the majority of these drafts. Wouldn't be surprised if the Gladiators try and take that one for themselves. Otherwise, Kepri might serve them pretty well, considering how much aggression really was rooted through that duo lane. A secondary life to play with, never hurt anybody. Well, it's not the Kepri anymore. Daji, I'm calling for it.
You want it? Do you want the Daji?
I would like to see Daji, yeah.
For the Gilded Gladiators. Yu-Huang, not Daji. Yu-Huang does have a bit of pressure in the first couple of levels, though, Miff.
For the first 3, that's right.
Is that enough, though?
To completely play through in a laning phase, no. Yu-Huang's going to be one of your late-game win conditions.
Ymir. Cupid Ymir, right? Is that what we're doing?
You don't really necessarily need to pick the Ymir this high up, but you absolutely
so
could.
Good. We only have 1 portion of the desk, and that means I have to analyze and chair 1.
Well, then what am I here for?
I don't know, Miff. Nothing during this pick and pan phase, essentially.
Yeah, I'm just here to adjust my band-aids.
Are they falling off?
That's right.
You put them on yourself?
Look, there's this thing called a finger band-aid, and it's like in an X shape, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, because when you bend your finger, it's supposed to be able to bend on the knuckle.
I didn't do that. I didn't do that at all. I put it on sideways, I'm finding out.
Mifflin, I love you. That's all I'm going to say. Atlas, now the pick for the Gilded Gladiators. So, bit of a different look already for the duo lane, no matter what. Not going to get the Emoja over on that side of the map. And then the Guan Yu taking that away from Deathwalker, maybe a good start for the Gilded Gladiators as well. But if you're Hex Mambo,
yep.
I was going to say you could run back the same composition, but Daji still waiting, and the Cthulhu ends up being the pick. Although I imagine the way Deathwalker can play this pick, Mifflin, still could find a way to run that lane with a bit of help.
Yeah, I just don't think that Cthulhu really is going to be your pressure. He'll be really strong in the late game team fight.
Sure.
He'll hold his own just fine, but don't expect to see anybody from Hex Mambo like rotating over and continually playing through that lane, barring some egregious positioning from Guan Yu. If Guan Yu gets a little bit over-aggressive, maybe you could do something about it, but even then, Cavalry Charge is such a good escape tool. I think Johnny will more likely spend his time in mid and duo.
Yeah, it's kind of ignoring the Guan Yu there, wasn't I? That's on me. See, this is what happens when I am the only one with a desk to lean on. That's my fault. I was doing too much. I know you're a big fan of the Chronos pick.
I'm not.
Now locked in here for Hex Mambo. Looks like over in the mid lane as well. You think Chronos mid for zeros is a good look?
I'm summoning the apocalypse.
Is it going to be a good look? Probably.
Yeah, results-based,
Is
right.
it blanket statement a good look? Definitely not. It's another pick that really takes a whole lot of time to start spooling up, doesn't really establish pressure on its own. Up against a Yu Huang, you're very susceptible throughout the early game. Yu Huang's levels 4 through like 7 are generally very weak because he lacks the same amount of clear as some of these other mages, doesn't have the same amount of kill pressure either. I think he's outshining Chronos in both of those regards for at least the first 10 to 15 levels, which means you probably want a jungler that can get active early. Mercury, not exactly that either. Hex Mambo could just make the difference in mechanical skill, though.
Yeah, but right, at some point I expect Johnny to just start slamming at level 5. You get Sonic Boom up, and even if Mercury isn't fully spooled up with some of those crit items, still off to a good start. Again, that's what the skill of Hex Mambo has led us to believe. We'll see if that skill can get another good early game built up here in game number 2. The Gilded Gladiators had their moments, a bit few and far between there in game number 1, but have totally revamped their draft strategy and given mass kill this set. So, barring me leaning forward, no more desks to break.
Yeah, I notice you're not touching yours anymore. What's
I
up with
almost
that?
never do. If I'm casting from here, which we do for SEC, I always just lean on my legs.
Yeah, I wish you would have told me.
Mifflin, you have broken 2 desks before this. No one
Well,
needed
the
to tell
other
you.
one wasn't my fault. I'll take credit for this one. I was leaning.
You've broken 2. This is your 3rd desk now, though.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I don't have any desk now.
I'm saying you've broken 3.
No, I've broken 2.
You've only broken 2.
That's right.
Who broke the middle desk?
That was the first one. Yeah, that was
That
me.
was the first one that you were leaning on.
No, I did like
Oh, that's right.
piano
You did a
fingers.
light. Yeah, you're right. This one was far and away your fault, though. No,
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
just
no.
always leaned on my
Yeah,
legs.
my elbows were on this one. Can't be doing that.
Yeah, can't
First
be.
thing you learn in school.
Can't be doing that. Talk to me about this set maybe for mass kill, though. We've mentioned Johnny on the Mercury. Yes, at level 5 you can start ganking, but like really hits those power spikes later on with the one-punch style of build. You think Set can set a faster pace here in game 2?
Oh, absolutely. Set, the second he ticks over to level 5, has got a good deal of kill pressure, a bit more mobility than Mercury as well. Just the option to jump over walls, so valuable in a lot of these engagements. Gives you the opportunity to really get the jump on these mid laners as well. So I am keeping my eyes on Maskill to set pace. I'd expected him to do so in game 1, though, and instead it was a much slower pace from him there as well. Could be Maskill leans on that old styling that he really likes to go towards of, hey, Set's late game is really good. I'm going to do everything that I can to get there as quickly as possible.
Well, 2v2 in mid. Hasn't resulted in much the last few times we've seen it. That's my bad. Gilded Gladiators, first blood, and it's on to Johnny. First few levels, Yu Huang's in a really good spot and Set able to turn around some damage. That's a bit of an overextension from Johnny. And maybe from zeros as well if he's not careful. And that's the dream start for the Gilded Gladiators. You get your mid laner off to a nice start, mass kill, able to hang out in lane, farm up a little bit. I mean, anything's a better start from what we saw in Game 1, but actually grabbing a kill here, fantastic.
Slowing down one of those late game hyper carries finds some value as well, so I'll be keeping my eyes on Sotos. I think Sotos is in a position, just by nature of the matchup, that he can really throw around his weight for the first 10 or so minutes. I expect him to play on tower line, expect him to get active against this Chronos, continually apply that poke, because the more poke you apply, the easier it is for Maskell to just rotate through and burst out whatever's remaining of zeros in that lane. I think Sotos really does need to step up for his team here if they want to be able to leverage the lead they've already established.
I was going to break again, but I'll keep us focused here on game number 2. No, I'm going to break again. Remember the old video of like the bear that Tom used to do that FDOT used to do like his post-game recaps with, where like he'd like sit there with the bear and then like he slammed it on the desk.
Yeah, I can see it from here.
I think we need, if only we had...
You want me to walk around with a broken piece of glass?
No, I'm saying what would have been hilarious was like if we somehow through your single or through the two were recording.
It is constantly recording. They almost certainly have it.
And then like a black and white screen, super slow-mo, and then like sad music, because like we're in the same way we mourned the bear, we're now mourning the desk.
Yeah, I'm gonna walk off the FCC cast and have a dank meme waiting for me. That's awesome, dude.
Miff, Twitter clout is all you care about. So.
No, dude, I care about 3 things and 3 things only.
The legs, the roof, and the other third thing that the desk is a part of. All right, I will get back into the cast. It was just on my mind, and I was gonna forget about it, and so I had to get it out. When I did. And so now we're right on back. So at level 5, the sonic boom pressure is built. And look at where Johnny's positioning, way behind the tier 1 tower over here in solo lane. Listimic's only level 4, hits level 5. You got to imagine, yeah, kill pressure is a bit limited now. Maybe not for Maskell, though, who has rotated over into the solo lane. Deathwalker used Descent into Madness. Stimix and Maskell just don't have enough damage yet. Maskell now has the pressure turned around, not into tower range. Johnny takes the skewer, Deathwalker low as well, and this one more of a disengage from Hex Mambo. Maskell and Listimix both down to half HP. And you're right, Miff, it's the Cthulhu taking a bit of the pressure. But unfortunately for the Gladiators, no kills.
Could turn around that Cthulhu pressure once we see that itemization shift up a little bit. It's a very slow start from Listimix going down that bobble tree in the first slot, whereas Deathwalker, once he gets that CDR available, can get a bit more involved in these engagements. Cthulhu not exactly a bully in lane, but still certainly can at least poke out consistently. Speaking of, Zeros might be in some trouble here.
Zeros pulled in, but stuns out Calvin, uses the ultimate, rewinds on back. Where was he 8 seconds ago? Over towards the mid camps. And Sotos and Calvin, again, putting some pressure on Hex Mambo. So this is a much better start from the Gilded Gladiators. They're actually having a say in the way that a few of these lanes are running right now. And they've kept Hex Mambo on the back foot. Does seem like you're waiting for Johnny to get his ultimate back up and the first couple of items to really start to roll through. And the good news for Toddy is that he has stayed upright up against E-Chrome and Trickstank. The Cupid Ymir duo lane didn't quite hit the same notes as it did in Game 1.
Toddy just does more damage than he did previously, right? In the previous match, E-Chrome was allowed to dash in, heart bomb, auto attack, and Jingwei said, man, sure wish that didn't happen, whereas Shibalanke can at least throw out some of those auto attacks with branching bola. You're able to match up some of that DPS, poison darts, a very strong tool to confirm your own auto attacks. A lot of people sleep on the slow that applies, but it's very, very good at making sure you're not missing those shots in these boxing trades. So I love the adaptation from Toddy in Game 2. Go to Gladiators, though, a bit dissimilar to Hex Mambo. Established their lead early, since then has generally fizzled out. And that lead is fizzling with it. Hex Mambo closing up a good deal.
Yeah, they sure are. You're going to get right back to even despite the first blood, heading over to the Yu Huang. Yeah, I mean, you know, you get a few extra stacks on the Warlock staff. You're able to complete that item a bit quicker, and so Sotos gets a nice head start in that way, but hasn't necessarily been able to force anything over in mid. Johnny sends Calvin right on back. This is the answer. Hex Mambo if needed, but they haven't finished off the
nice
kill.
Shot.
Johnny with the sonic boom does end up hitting his target. Sotos with another, though, as Maskell has gotten another assist on board. Johnny plus Maskell equals fight, but Deathwalker stepping in as an intermediary. Is that the right word?
Third partied. He third partied that fight.
It was a
for
really
sure.
bad word for cast. Trying to throw intermediary in there in the middle of a team fight.
Yeah, he arbitrated for sure.
The arbitrator. That would have been much better. God, you're better at this than I am. And stun from Zeros goes missing. Ends up being a 1-for-1. Not bad for Hex Mambo or the Gilded Gladiators.
But looking at the board, Hex Mambo may have gone into that fight behind. They come out of it ahead, even if it is incredibly slight. But you got to be concerned about the pacing of this game if you're a Gilded Gladiators fan. You look at these drafts, and it's not as if the Gilded Gladiators have got a poor 5-on-5 engagement. It's more so that Hex Mambo have just got 2 late-game win conditions that could just do it on their own. 3 if you want to count Cthulhu, as he brings so much to those team fights. Want to see Gilded Gladiators somehow, some way, get active on the map. It almost feels as if they've got a timer on how long they're allowed to play this match.
Right.
The only way to extend that timer is by establishing a lead early on.
Calvin is going to take a lot of damage here. Barring E-Chrome dashing forward, though, Calvin should be okay. See what the Atlas can do later on here in this game. Yeah, you're right. I mean, not like there's been buff invades, anything like that from the Gilded Gladiators. Just been looking for more fights, and it is tiny. But officially have now fallen behind in gold, where Hex Mambo have really just kept up their farm game and not allowed the Gladiators to build off of this lead over in mid. I mean, Sotos needs the fighting to be happening there. You're not rotating out of mid all that often. Rotation over from Johnny. A sonic boom onto Toddy. And one more auto gets it. And it's onto a terrible target if you're the Gilded Gladiators. The Mercury now with a couple of kills goes back in towards Calvin. Masked kill. Hoping to follow up the pull from Calvin. But this is a 3 versus 2. Doesn't matter. Mass Kill's got the damage. Heart Bomb should tilt the scales right back. Zeros rotates from mid. A nice little chunk damage from Sotos. But ultimately doesn't matter. This one in favor of Hex Mambo. I believe in a 2-for-1 trade, and it's only Johnny who goes down.
Hex Mambo have just been choosing the engagements, and they choose well. They're taking fights on enemy purple buffs. They're always starting off with a pick towards their favor. And even in that small trade, Johnny only falls down because he decides to dash in aggressively. Had he said, hey, we got our pick, we got our invade, we could just walk out, likely would have got out of there clean. Instead, tries to push their lead a little bit further. Because it seems as if Hex Mambo have really identified, hey, the Gilded Gladiators, they're not going to do anything on the map. They're not going to get aggressive. We can choose every single one of these trades, and the opportunity cost is going to be very, very low.
Yeah, it's been very low. So you start to look towards Gold Fury here in the next couple of minutes. I mean, either of these teams will likely have the damage now with how the game has gone up to this point. But with the way that the Gilded Gladiators have stepped in and responded on a couple of occasions, I don't know if Hex Mambo are going to be able to freely pull any objectives over on the left or the right side of the map whenever the Pyromancer respawns. Really been playing well around Johnny's Sonic Boom cooldown. Usually Rage early on in the build for a Mercury. It looks like that's exactly what Johnny is going for. And every so often you'll see a Rage get picked up and then no stacks get added to it for like 15, 20 minutes, like the curse of the Rage. But I get the feeling that with the way Johnny's been playing, even if you're going to be adding a couple of deaths in there, that Rage will find its stacks one way or another. They found some pretty good targets here. I mean, Toddy doesn't have beads for another 45 or so seconds. Maskill also doesn't have beads. Certainly an area here where Johnny and Hex Mambo could try to force a fight around a few targets.
Did you notice Toddy GR's Transcendent stacks? Might be why we saw him go towards dominance in the first game. Halfway to the 50 mark and completely behind as Calvin takes a whole lot of damage.
Calvin, Sonic boomed, and dropped by Zeros. My goodness, E-Chrome looks like no Fields of Love on the Cupid. And so I have a general idea of what happened. Mass kill, though, chasing down the low mana, half-health Deathwalker. And that'll be the last thing that he does. Hex Mambo turn another around. Again, even at a deficit earlier on in this game, it was all Hex Mambo, to your point, Myth, calling all of the shots now. 1,600 gold ahead and a Pyromancer just around the corner. But Listimics has got to know that there's a rotation out of Zeros here shortly. I mean, at some point, Hex Mambo can just turn their eyes towards the Guan Yu. And get another kill. Yes, there's sustain, there's cavalry charge. You're able to get out. Nearly a kill on the fadeaway from Zeros. And unfortunately, Dueling Dragons from Sotos won't get the steal. Hex Mambo just simply playing the map better right now, and Gilded Gladiators have not been able to keep up with the pace that's been set.
And it's a trapping that we've seen higher tier teams fall into as well. Even at the SPL level, at times squads like the Solar Scarabs will establish a slight lead, and they just kind of rest on their laurels a little bit. Or the Olympus Bolts have done the exact same thing. And the Gilded Gladiators find themselves in that exact same position. It almost felt as if they get that first blood in mid, and they say, wow, we did it. Who'd have thunk? Who'd have foreseen us getting here?
Not me.
And they just stop doing it. You gotta keep that pressure up. You need to do something with that golden experience. And in choosing not to, that's not a choice to not make a decision. Choosing not to is a decision in of itself. And Hex Mambo, they've just waited until they were very capable of getting involved, 1-2 items into their builds, and said, all right, well, if you're not going to do it, even from behind, we're just going to do it ourselves.
Right.
And from there, I mean, the gold speaks for itself.
Choosing to play actively is a choice. Choosing not to play actively, also a choice.
Losing's a choice.
Losing, also a choice. You stole the bit right out from underneath me, Miff. After I sat here in solidarity with you, hands hovering above the desk, you're going to steal my bit away from me. That's unbelievable. After everything I've gone through with you this morning, I'm the real...
Wow. Your struggle is crazy.
Yeah, I had to watch you cut your arm on that desk.
That's
man.
right.
That's terrible. Can you imagine what that put me through?
Blood, sweat, and tears from Mifflin on the SCC. Never accuse me of not loving this
Wow,
scene.
you literally can say that.
That's
now,
right.
That you have put blood, sweat, and tears into the cast for sure. Have you cried?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not on cast, maybe, but
No, on the, like, you know, it's 8 a.m., there's
Right,
traffic, and I'm just like, man, I'm getting up so early.
yeah, brutal. That 8 a.m. Saturday traffic is just as tough as Toddy and Calvin's dual lane experience. There are your rage stacks for Johnny. Sonic Boom right down Main Street, and snags another couple for Hex Mambo, and wouldn't you guess it, odds open up now for a Gold Fury. It's a simple rotation right on over for Hex Mambo, and it's slightly delayed. You know, we're about 5 minutes behind where we were in game number 1, but Hex Mambo have sort of arrived all the same. And it's that increasing power from Johnny on this Mercury where you want to try to delay if you're Gilded Gladiators what he's able to do, but seems like with the Rage and then potentially Deathbringer after that, it's going to be absolutely ridiculous on all of the squishies that the Gilded Gladiators have drafted.
Well, what I saw in that exchange was Calvin watching on in the distance as his boys just take a massive L, and Hex Mambo say, okay, and walk to the Gold Fury immediately afterward. It really is just one of these two teams decided to be active. They woke up, they had their coffees. Gilded Gladiators needed a little bit more of a warm-up, I think. They're a bit of a slow start on their decision-making. Hex Mambo just outpacing them all the way across the board.
They sure are. And unfortunately, I didn't even get a chance. Toddy just died so quickly.
I couldn't get my point out fast enough. He
that's
died
fair.
that fast.
Yeah, E-Chrome just too strong. Still unstacked on the Transcendence, by the way. Aussie,
It's the reason everybody's playing Cupid, man.
Aussie hopefully helpful later on in the game for Toddy and providing a bit of sustain for the Jabalanque, but I'm not holding my breath much. And this is sometimes where the games stagnate, right? I mean, there's no Gold Fury, there's no Pyromancer for another few minutes. Every once in a while, this is where things will really, really slow down. But Hex Mambo have not played that style over the last couple of games. For every ounce of farm, whether it's camp invades, just some harpies, even for the sake of fighting and getting people out of lane, Hex Mambo just do not let off the pressure. That's a decent dueling Dragons from Sodos. Really slows down Trix Tank more than anything else, but in the meantime, Zero's just wailing away on the Tier 1 tower, and the Gilded Gladiators didn't have much to say about it. Simply falls down under the eye of a couple members of the Gladiators.
I'm with you that the Dueling Dragons was good because it landed. I think it was bad because he used it. It just shouldn't. Just sometimes don't press the button, or if you're going to press it, maybe hit the wave so that your tower stays standing, because Zeros was unconcerned. He's not thinking, oh man, Trix Tank might be in some trouble here, and Trix Tank wasn't. Let me make that clear. He's thinking, wow, free tower, and he walks away exactly like that. Now Listimics could be in some trouble, but Guan Yu incredibly safe. Cavalry charge defensively loses the Gilded Gladiators out on a bit of initiation. Now they're going to have to struggle a little bit more so to figure out how they want to start these fights. Just feels like Hex Mambo have got control all the way across the map. It might be the gold lead, it might be the experience lead, it might be the itemization lead. I don't know what it is exactly, but
all of it.
One of those is really adding up to just a lead.
Yeah, a good bit of it. Yeah, look, I mean, when it's all the small things as well, where in moments like that, now you don't have dueling Dragons for Sodos. You can't not that you were walking into fight, but you just now get that ultimate back. Didn't have the opportunity. Toddy has to use the beads and the dash away. My goodness, just half-healthed by the Fields of Love. 4-level gap again. The odds of falling 4 levels behind in the SEC or the SPL, very limited. I don't know the number of times I've seen a 4-level lead built up in many cases. Now it's
twice
happened,
today.
Yeah, it happened in back-to-back games now for Toddy, where Echrome has just exerted dominance, despite Toddy having to buy dominance at the risk of not stacking up the Transcendence in game 1. It's been the Echrome show over on the left side of the map. Now at this point, you open yourself up to just be methodical if you're Hex Mambo. I mean, you can almost do no wrong. As long as you're grouped up as a team and you're taking your fights, even some odd-numbered fights, you probably favored to win in. Yeah, why not? Walk over to the Pyromancer. It's not like the Gilded Gladiators are strong enough to compete with you here. The Primal Fury's going to be up in a minute. Go back, reset, spend your gold. This has got to be such a comfortable spot for Hex Mambo to be fighting out of. When you're sending this much pressure towards Echrome, the little bit of sustain shouldn't be enough. Got to be a kill, but you send 3 members
Johnny?
and a few ultimates over.
You surely don't.
Might be able to go in onto Toddy because the teammates are abandoning him. Yeah. Now it's just Johnny. Finally gets some crits.
You thought.
Has Deathbringer now and another stack on the Rage.
Yeah, it just makes sure that Toddy doesn't get a lead, right? He didn't earn that one. That was a 3 versus 1 on the left-hand side. If you want to catch up to my boy Echrome, you got to do it yourself. But even in that trade, it's a 1-for-1. Hex Mambo gets an objective as well. And to put it into a frame of reference, the style of lead that we're looking at, Toddy is lower level than the lowest level on the side of Hex Mambo. That is a carry as opposed to a support. And it's a significant difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Trix Tank at level 15 here. Also very strong. Good. Wall blocks Calvin in. Stun, damage, roots, all of it. You name it. Hex Mambo got it in their 10th kill of the game. Watch
Good
out for
Aegis.
the big numbers here. They're going to start connecting. Now, Miff, I'm going to say this about that Aegis. It's good in that it blocks some damage.
Maybe save it for some
Maybe
time
save
to
it
actually
for
save you.
I don't know if he needed to use it there. Did delay things out a little bit, but delay is maybe the name of the game here for the Gilded Gladiators. You are so far behind a very, very, very fed team. I mean, do you think they even outscale Hex Mambo? I mean, the Hex Mambo...
We talked about this already, man.
Did we?
Yeah.
When?
Like 14 minutes ago.
All right, well, I can't be blamed for that.
Surely you could.
First of all, don't call me Shirley. Second of
that's
all...
on me.
Do they even outscale Hex Mambo?
No.
Okay, there we go.
So there's a Kronos and a Mercury and a Cthulhu.
Yeah.
And just so much gold.
Yeah, and that's a dead Toddy.
No.
Oh, good Aegis. That one is a good, that's full stop. Good
Yeah,
Aegis.
take notes, Sotos. That's what it's supposed to look like.
How to use beads and Aegis to stay on the map there. I was confident that Heart Bomb was about to half-health Toddy. Might have gotten close. Over the wall goes Maskill. Seen a lot of disengaging set so far here in Game 2. Not a lot of running in outside of level 1. Now the Primal Fury goes up. And before you know it, we're at the 20-minute mark with this ridiculous gold lead for Hex Mambo. Just about 9,000 and 11, almost 12,000 experience. I think we are in walk at the Fire Giant territory if you're Hex Mambo, and I'm not sure the Gilded Gladiators can say much about it.
Yeah, to recontextualize the lead again, the lowest level on Hex Mambo is only 1 level lower than the highest level on Gilded Gladiators.
And it's, right, it's the support.
And it's the
right?
support, as opposed to the Soul Laner, 17 to 18. Listimics, if you got to compare yourself to somebody, compare yourself to Trix Tank, because you are winning.
You're right, that's the right way to look at it, I guess, right? You're in the post-game lobby, you're like, look, I was the highest level. Yeah, but solo lane's got to be removed from that conversation.
Why?
He just got to hang out over on the right side of the map while chaos reigned everywhere else.
You're right, he was just vibing. Triple goose egg for Listimics over there as the rest of the team falls down around him. Maybe leave something at his feet then. If you're triple goose egg and your boys are suffering on the map, perhaps get involved. Maybe lend a helping hand.
Maybe. But again, at some point your team is so far behind, I'm not sure what...
You're such a Soul Lane apologist, man.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to play devil's advocate. Is there a moment in this game where Listimics rotating out, do you think would have been more helpful than him staying in lane? Like the rotation out and potentially falling behind because of farm. would have been more worthwhile than just hanging out with Deathwalker in lane.
There was a point where Lystemix was about a level and a half up just by nature of the Cthulhu versus
Yep.
Guan matchup.
Yep.
Could have probably rotated mid and helped out then.
All right, fair.
Whether or not it was a likely success, to be seen, right?
Right, it's
But
results-based thinking.
certainly
You gotta-
could have happened. Could have
Okay.
been attempted.
was an opportunity, I suppose. But look, Sotos has been okay this game. A first blood, another kill. Sotos actually was chunking down some damage earlier on, just couldn't convert it. And here
He's tied for best KD.
is now the collapse from Hex Mambo around the Fire Giant. I mean, I don't know if you're the Gilded Gladiator. Yeah, I don't think you can be in this area.
Get him, Calvin.
He was thinking about it. Unable to do it. The
Oof.
wall blocks off the dash.
Oof.
Shields of Love there as well. A little speediness. You're using a lot to kill off Calvin here, but you will kill off Calvin. Hex Mambo, all 5 with Fire Giant, and 3 tier 2 towers left on the map, while the Gilded Gladiators farm up some of the left side jungle.
Get yourself a tier 2 tower, maybe. I don't think Toddy's really integral to the defense of his Phoenix. Is going to be very hard pressed to find that value. Maskill needs to get back to
I just
base.
want to see a big number. Show me a big crit. Just one. Oh, he dodges out the skewer.
Oh, my man's unlucky.
Yeah, he's got a fully stacked rage. Give him one.
There it is.
There you go. Bops him. Bops mass kill. That was the most lopsided. I pray that the next 1v1 between 2 junglers, 22 minutes in we get, is a bit closer than that, because those are some of my favorite moments. But this one, not all that exciting, is Johnny's just simply too strong. Serrated Edge now picked up. Fully stacked Rage. Deathbringer.
Ooh.
That was pretty early
Ooh.
on. Calvin.
Ooh.
You can convey so much with just one. Not even word. It's just an expression. Ooh. It's not a word, right?
It's like onomatopoeia, I guess.
No, that's when you repeat the same sound in a. No, it's alliteration.
Onomatopoeia is a word that is spelled like
Right.
it sounds, right?
Right.
Or no, it's the word like bang.
Yeah, right.
Or
Boom.
Ooh is the sound of lost
Right, you're
faith.
Right. It's like comic book sounds.
Yeah.
Or onomatopoeias.
Every onomatopoeia has been used to describe a Batman punch at some point.
At some point or another. And could be used to describe the way that this game has gone for the Gilded Gladiators. Heart Bomb won't stun out Toddy, but man, all the backpedaling happening now from the Gilded Gladiators. Gonna have some real strong quads. All those back pedals that are going on to Hex Mambo have opened up the entirety of the base. Before this Fire Giant siege really even took place, all 3 Phoenixes are down. And you've still got nearly 2 minutes on your FG buff. This is simple for Hex Mambo. Take a deep breath. Finish the cereal that you didn't have time to eat between game 1 and game 2. And then roll on into the base of the Gilded Gladiators and close things out.
Just the most difficult games to commentate because it is so truly
Yeah, you bailed me out with
one-sided.
a desk shatter in
Yeah.
game 1.
If I had another one, I'd do it again. All right,
Yeah.
just to help out here because this is one-sided to be sure. Hex Mambo they own the map, and it's not often you see
Oh,
a
here we go.
20,000 gold lead 24 minutes
Round
in.
2. See some big crits. Oh! 11:58. That one's huge.
That doesn't count, man.
Why not?
Because he's got like Eye of the Jungle. That
Yeah,
gives you,
look,
like,
I'm a
bonuses.
simple-minded man.
Just like the big number. Got
I
it.
just see a giant, I guess technically a blood splat, right, is what
That's
that is,
right.
and then 11:58.
Here's another
This
1v1.
feels great. Yeah, well, it is a 2v1, but
I like Zeros'
still, yeah,
odds.
I still take Zeros' chances here. E-Chrome and Zeros in a 4 versus 2. Zeros is 2v1ing, has to use the ult to back away. E-Chrome will finally go down, but now Johnny joins the fight, and this might be the fight that simply ends the game. Trix Tank just too strong. Another one for Johnny. Spin to Wern and a triple kill for the Mercury. Technically a penta on the map, but a bit too far away. Johnny will get 3 and have to be satisfied.
Deathwalker trying his best to get eyes on the pentakill for his boy Johnny.
It's been too long.
You know, he's locking him down. Look, a pentakill is when 5 people are killed by 1 guy, all right? Johnny could still do it. It might not say it.
It does not carry the same weight unless the
Ooh,
word
quadra.
pentakill shows up on the screen. Technically all 5 for Johnny to end the game. It's a triple kill and a double kill and a game 2 and set win for Hex Mambo. My goodness, what a chaotic start to the morning here. We got 2 games, some of the fastest we've seen in the SEC here this weekend. 1 broken desk, a delayed pentakill from Johnny, and 0 close games in the SEC here this morning. Hex Mambo Myth simply too strong of a team. That's why you favor them in the EU SEC. And I'm thinking, look, there's plenty of time to go.
Like a meerkat.
There's plenty of time to go before the qualifiers roll
praying
out
mantis.
here. Before the SEC qualifiers, things like that. SPL teams have a month and a half, 2 months almost before we're getting into SEC SPL clash territory to go to Worlds. Those bottom 4 SPL teams after the Phase 3 playoffs. I'm raising my eyebrows a bit right now. If I'm a few of those bottom SPL teams and I'm watching how Hex Mambo's playing these types of games, you're taking their opponents, things like that into account, but I'm raising my eyebrows a bit. I mean, Worlds with fans this year, Hex Mambo are going to be a very, very competitive team down the stretch.
I think so, man. And it's not as if they weren't competitive previously either.
Of course not.
They were taking matches off the SPL teams, taking
Yeah.
sets off SPL teams as well. It's a squad that is stacked with talent top to bottom. And I think the only thing holding them back, legitimately, and it's probably the most toxic thing I'm going to say today, is the quality of competition by and large can't stack up against these guys.
And their own time
don't,
investment, right?
They don't have anybody that they could practice against and strive to improve, except for maybe the Highland Ravens. I'm very excited to see how that matchup
that
looks
matchup
once
will
they
be
get to
fun.
play against each other. But otherwise, these guys are head and shoulders above the rest of the USCC.
Right, and then time investment as well. I know that the SEC teams, they all scrim, they play matches, they practice throughout the week, do VOD reviews, all that sort of stuff, but less of a full-time job, obviously, than the SMITE Pro League is. So those are the types of things you absolutely have to take into account. But there's also kind of this scrappiness, underdog type of mentality with this team. Whenever they come to LAN and they play these SPL teams, it's almost like a nothing-to-lose type mentality, right? I mean, they've shown up and they've been competitive. And that was enough for this squad for a little while, it felt like. But now that Worlds with fans playing on that main stage on the line, I think there's some rejuvenated motivation among some of the top SEC teams and feeling like they might have the ability to punch their ticket out into Worlds. And that's the beauty of the way that we've built out our qualification processes. Anyone can make it on any given weekend if you play well enough. Post-game stats rolling through here, but all you really need to know is outside of a few kills early on in this game, the Gilded Gladiators just mopped by Hex Mambo. And I don't know, this team doesn't show lots of signs of slowing down, but I also think you have confidence with Hex Mambo in that this is not the only way that they win games. They do like to pick up the pace a bit, and they have started to play this style a bit more often. Also a team in a slower meta that is very, very good at slowing games down and playing around objectives a bit more methodically.
I agree completely, man. Hex Mambo is a team that is capable of playing both, but has recently decided, look, we can really expedite our pace, especially against our compatriots here in the SEC, and so they have learned to do exactly that. Just tough to imagine what these other teams are looking at, because if you're the Gilded Gladiators in that situation, what do you learn from a match like that? It is so utterly one-sided that at some point, 15 minutes in, 10 minutes in, once the game is completely turned around, it's about a 4, 5, 6,000 gold lead for Hex Mambo. You got to say, look, we may have been able to play this one differently, but every bit of data we've acquired since then has been skewed by the fact that we just don't have the resources to fight at their level. Hard to learn from that one for them, and hard to commentate legitimately. That was tough.
You are so frustrated with the way that game was going. You had to shatter the desk right in front of us. Let's take a look back at what happened this weekend in the EU SEC. A whole lot of 2-0s. I'll spoil that for you. 2-0 for the Scorpions, the Ravens, and the Mambo over the Ferrymen, the Wargs, and the Gladiators, respectively. The Scorpions continue to be on the rise a bit here in the EU SEC, continue to surprise me. I mean, a turnaround from where that squad was just a couple of phases ago. Highland Ravens still maybe the highest competition to this Hex Mambo team, who just wiped out the Gilded Gladiators somewhat easily, if you were to ask the Hex Mambo. And the standings will reflect that as well. Hex Mambo remain undefeated here in the EU SEC, as do the Highland Ravens. Remember, not next week. Hex Mambo and the Highland Ravens will not play until the final weekend of the EU SEC, but that matchup, barring any upsets, will determine number 1 versus number 2 seed for those early December tournaments where you're starting to whittle down the EU, SEC, and the SOC teams, and same for North America, that end up getting to play in the group stages of Worlds early on in January. And so really Hex Mambo and Highland Ravens, I think you're looking at these two teams. The Aru Scorpions as well, I think, can raise some eyebrows, potentially make some upsets happen. But if you're Hex Mambo, you're Highland Ravens, you're looking forward to, yes, the road to Worlds for the EU SEC teams later on, early in December. You're probably less concerned about exact standings. You want to be number 1 seed. Obviously, you want to be able to play against the lower seeded teams. But I have to imagine the confidence for Hex Mambo is at an all-time high now. That was it. That was quite a morning, wasn't it, here in the EU SEC? Mifflin broke a table, broke my heart, got me very nervous, but he is healthy, he is happy, and he is okay. Don't those thumbs really just tell you the story there? That is a man who is happy with the way that his morning has gone, and I am as well. That's it for the EU SEC, though. The SMITE Pro League kicking off in just about 30 minutes. It is the return of Hurrywind playing support today for the Solar Scarabs, going up against the Valhalla Valkyries, a must-win set, you could argue, for both of these two teams. SPL kicking off, so stick around. You don't want to miss it.